This happened a few months ago, but the issue is not resolved, and I need advice on what to do about this now. We have 2 kids, 4 and 3 years old, and have been together for 8 years. We both work, and our lives have been the typical stress of working full-time jobs while managing 2 little ones. My husband is good about doing his share of chores and is a great father to our kids, but has been complaining about how our bed lives have become dull and boring. For our 6th anniversary, I thought I'd surprise him with a vacation. I saved up slowly for the better part of the year to rent a mountainside vacation home for 4 nights. It was gorgeous and isolated and had amenities like a jacuzzi and pool and outdoor showers and a lot of things that would help fulfill some of the fantasies my husband has. I spend a lot on expensive wine and drinks that we both would love. I made arrangements for sitters for my kids and then told him about the trip so he could plan time off from work and travel. We got there, and on the first night, just as we were getting into some hot coitus, my in-laws showed up. My mother-in-law came with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, and also my teenage sister-in-law. She said that since we had a big place with so many rooms, there was a place for everyone. I was shocked and couldn't even say anything. My husband was shocked too, but he helped my mother-in-law pick a room and set up her stuff there. I was so upset, I took my glass of wine and spent an hour crying in the bathtub while my husband stayed with his family. I woke up early next morning to find that they had finished off most of the very pricey alcohol stash I had bought for the stay. I went on a long hike, and when I got back early in the afternoon, everybody was still asleep. My husband was up, and he apologized to me and suggested we have a quickie before we went down to make breakfast for everyone, which just made me angry. So he went on his own to cook, and I packed up all of my stuff and got in our car and left. I had left him behind with his stuff. He called me many times, but I ignored the phone till I finished the 3-hour drive to our home, and then texted him to let him know where I was. He was upset and wanted to come home right away. But mother-in-law wanted to enjoy the vacation, and since she was his ride, he was stuck there for another 2 nights, and finally came home on the day of our anniversary. I spent that day with my kids and friends and ignored him. My husband was furious with me for abandoning him, and we had multiple fights over this issue. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law sent me a text of apology saying they didn't realize it was our anniversary, and mother-in-law led them to believe it was a spontaneous vacation for everyone. My husband also apologized for their coming over, but said that that big house was too much for us anyway, and we got more bang for our buck since more family members got to use the empty rooms. That hurt my feelings more because it was my hard-earned money that I spent to make his coitus fantasies true. When I said this, he argued back that all he wants to do is be able to intimate his wife whenever without me trying to make a big production out of everything. This argument has just destroyed my attraction towards him. I feel like he likes to complain and wish for things, but doesn't actually want to make the effort to make them happen if it's in any way inconvenient. That he wants me to make his life easy, but doesn't prioritize my feelings. That may be unfair of me to think so because he does so much for our family, but my view has become discolored by this event. He wants us both to apologize to each other and put this behind, but I am unable to let it go. I do want to fix this though, and I need help figuring out how to approach this. This is an update and event. I got some good advice in my last post, and some people had pointed out how me leaving him behind could have upset my husband. So when I had our discussion with him again, I started by acknowledging that my leaving like that put him in a difficult place. I explained to him why it hurt my feelings that he'd let his family take over the vacation that I had planned and arranged for our anniversary. He explained that when my in-laws showed up, he was embarrassed of me and for me. Before we left on our trip, I had sent him the booking details. He called my mother-in-law to inform her we'd be out of town for a few days, and she asked for details, and he forwarded her our reservation info. Mother-in-law looks at it and says this is such a big house, how many people are going to be there? She couldn't believe I'd get this place for just the 2 of us, and said that is just like me to be so wasteful. When they showed up, husband says he welcomed them in, so this wouldn't become another reason for them to make fun of me. He claims he was trying to protect me. If I had a good time with them and cooked for them, they'd like me better. I didn't know this, but apparently I am a running joke in his family. In his opinion, the jokes are not without basis because he thinks I do spend too much. When we were newly married, he got an opportunity for a big contract at work. The prospective clients were very rich folks that he had to wine and dine and present to, and he was pretty nervous about that. I thought I'd help him by organizing his wardrobe for the meetings. I researched men's fashion, bought a few nice things, and thrifted a few expensive brands, commissioned a tailor for alterations, and redid a chunk of his professional wardrobe. His firm got the contract, and he got a huge bonus, and he showered me with gifts and thanked me for making him look so nice and boosting his confidence. At that time, I was still trying to get in my mother-in-law's good graces, so I showed off my work to her. Mother-in-law laughed at me, saying that some girls don't outgrow the doll dressing phase, and I was treating my husband like my Ken doll. Mother-in-law tells the story with her spin to their family, and it becomes a joke that I play dress up with my husband. Husband has forgotten how much he'd liked what I did, but remembers his mom's version that I went on a shopping spree. One time, husband got the opportunity to chair an important celebratory dinner for his firm's clients. On his behalf, I put together personalized gifts for more than a dozen guests. I pulled this off while pregnant and handling a baby, so I did all my shopping online. We both were super busy, and the recycling had piled up. Mother-in-law took a picture of boxes from department stores and used it in stories about my shopping addiction. Again, husband doesn't remember the work I did, but brings up that picture to tell me that I do spend too much. He would critique me that I need more stamina in the bedroom, so I started Pilates. He brought up that I used to be more flexible, so I took up yoga. I ended up exacerbating my back problems from my 2 pregnancies and saw a physical therapist who recommended strength training. Not wanting to risk hurting myself again, I hired a personal trainer. That is another joke to them, that I am a flighty, extravagant person, flitting from hobby to hobby. Husband now says if I want to get fit, I should have joined a sport, but I throw money at personal trainers. He had never brought up issues with money before. We don't have debt other than mortgage, and he never discussed having a more aggressive savings plan. We both make good money in our careers. But he has developed the view of me that I am spendthrift and shopaholic without giving credence to my reasoning. I know he loves his mother, but finds her immature, and so he manages her. He is putting me in similar view frames and thinks he is indulging and managing me. There is a lack of respect for my ability to do things with a good reason, and a very condescending attitude towards me. After our lengthy arguments, when he couldn't build a valid case for why my spending is to be criticized, he brings up again why I'd rent such a big place for our vacation. I spelled it out that the point wasn't the size of the house, but that it was on private land, away from public hiking trails, had a large heated pool and a jacuzzi. For years, he's been harping about wanting outdoor coitus. Every time we are on a hike, he wants to do something outdoors. Anytime we are at a pool, he talks about his pool coitus fantasy. But I am a very private person, the very opposite of an exhibitionist, and that's something I would never be comfortable with. So I thought making that happen for him in a very secluded setting would be a nice gift. Turns out he never was into outdoor coitus. He'd say that just to make me uncomfortable. He claims he was merely flirting to get a rise out of me, but I think it was his way of making me feel like I was lacking to keep me on my toes. He would bring up his desires for different coitus acts, and I wanted to make him happy so much, and so we did everything that can be done in the privacy of a bedroom. Then he figured what my absolute limit was, and that he could complain about. No wonder he never got the point of my gift, because that wasn't something he wanted. My not being able to do something was more valuable to him. I loved this guy so much and worked so hard for him and our family, and meanwhile he was trying to manage me and play me. All those feelings of love have turned to dust. I know what I want to do now, but I am not sure what the right moves are. I've started therapy, and I need to think long about what would be best for my kids. I think he's a great father to them, but then I used to think he was an awesome husband. Update: I have spent the past month focused on myself and my therapy. I did talk to 2 different divorce lawyers, and I have a good idea of what to expect if I were to pursue divorce. About a week after my last update, I talked to my husband about separating our finances. He was shocked and unhappy that I am taking these steps. I reminded him that how I spent money has become a big issue for him, so this ought to make him happy. It didn't. I have moved my paychecks and savings into a new account at a different bank. I offered to him that we split the house payments and bills 50-50. Though he makes a lot more than me, I do make more than enough. He said he disagrees on the separating finances, and he's not going to make a move on that. He isn't taking me out of what are now his accounts. Since I am the one who usually makes the bill payments, he wants me to continue handling that. He still feels that I am blowing up a minor issue. I admitted to him that I have talked to divorce attorneys to see what my options are, and that shook him up. He was pretty angry with me and very hurt, and that did make me feel bad. He wants us to go to marriage counseling, and I want that too. The situation with my mother-in-law isn't getting any better. I didn't give a background on the last few posts I made, but mother-in-law has become a bigger issue since father-in-law passed away 2 years ago. She was always difficult and didn't like me from the start, but things have become much worse since she lost her husband. We have a spare guest room, and she'd frequently come and stay the night if she ever got into any minor argument with father-in-law. She has keys to our house and would just show up and sleep in the guest room as if it were her room in our house. These overnight stays became more frequent since father-in-law passed. She mostly spends time with my older sister-in-law and has moved next to her and practically lives with her. But when she gets upset there, she'll come sleep at our place. Now, along with separating finances, I had decided to move out of the master bedroom into the guest room. Husband is not happy about it because he doesn't want me to leave. Mother-in-law is pissed that I have taken over what she thinks of as her room. She wants me in the kids' room instead. Since this is my house too, that is not happening. She has had many tantrums about me living in her room. Husband has asked her to knock it off and told her to give us space while we deal with our issues. He's asked her not to come to our house unless invited, and that brought on a new storm. She came by a couple days ago while husband was at work and told me she's looking forward to me leaving. She told me about women she's lining up as potential dates for my husband as soon as he starts dating and how they are so much better than me. She mentioned 2 of her family friends' single daughters, Amy and Beth, fake names, who've always had a crush on my husband according to her. I know these women. They are nice, I've nothing against them, and I could only roll my eyes at her trying to make me jealous. I told her, Amy is very pretty, but husband is an ass man, so she should go with Beth. And I got such a kick out of the shocked look on her face. Later, when my husband came home, he wanted to know why his mom is telling everyone that I admitted to being a lesbian. I could hardly breathe. I was laughing so hard. Told him what his mom was saying, and he was pretty pissed. He called and yelled at her and has banned her from our house. So at least I have that going for me. Update: husband and I have come to an agreement about our future, and I am writing this down for you awesome people who have commented and helped me. We went through marriage counseling and individual therapy for both. A lot of issues with regards to how we communicate were brought up. We had been drifting apart for the past 2 years, and a lot of it was due to father-in-law passing away and mother-in-law, who had completely relied on him, clinging on to my husband. Then there were issues with work and the stress of managing 2 very young kids. While we addressed many issues in counseling, the 2 main problems were mother-in-law's interference and our bed life. Regarding mother-in-law, husband has been dealing with a lot of guilt and frustration. He was close to father-in-law and devoted to him, but disliked his mom. After his dad's passing, he felt like he had to take on his responsibilities, something that mother-in-law guilted him into, and one of the major responsibilities is managing mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law's whole personality lately has become fixated on me. It's non-stop all the ways that I am wrong, and she's smart enough to be both subtle and overt about it with everyone. She's been relentless, and I have no idea what she's got against me that she'd go so far and work so hard to put me down. I suppose husband has been continuously exposed to it so much that what she says has become reality to him. Regarding our bed life, my husband was both flabbergasted and upset that I am now seeing his criticisms as abuse. He explained that he's always been very happy with our bed life. Early on in our relationship, he found that if he ever said something about, "Hey, let's try this," I'd sit and analyze our fun times, and he found that a major turn on. I am an analytical person by nature, and it's practically my job to evaluate and write reports and recommendations. It became like a kink for him to watch me do a detailed discussion with him post-coitus. He did not realize how much effort I was putting into this, because to him it was just a fun thing we did. None of this made me happy with him, and the realizations from counseling made me feel that I won't be happy in this marriage. We were living as roommates in the same house, and I had stopped doing a lot of stuff I used to do for him, both at home and with regard to his work, travel, and work social engagements. For his part, he did acknowledge that he had been unfair to me, and he had become so used to me doing everything that he had been taking it all for granted. Then he proposed to me that we start all over again, stay married, but start dating each other again and rebuild our relationship from the ground up. He managed his work situation so that he can elect to relocate to a new place, about 8 hours away from where we live, and we restart everything together without family influence. I agreed to that, but I was skeptical about whether he'd move and leave mother-in-law behind. When she found out about the possible relocation, she blew up and tried hard to get husband to change his mind and stay close to her. Even my sister-in-law came to talk to me to convince him to stay, because otherwise my mother-in-law was losing her mind and had become a much bigger challenge for her. We did move though, and husband has kept his word, and things have been pretty nice with him for the past couple weeks. Since I work remotely, moving wasn't a problem with my job. I am going to stay out of putting effort into his career though, and focus on mine instead. Other than my own full-time job and being a parent who does most of the work and managing the house, I was also doing stuff like his damn personal assistant, and I am so over that. Husband has been very supportive with everything and is making more of an effort to be the one who plans things with kids and dates with me. Original poster adds some information in comments. I know everyone is harping on your significant other, and I do think it's a lot, especially when you both have been working through things. But I am curious, can you articulate what he did wrong? You seem very connected to your perceived issues, but not his. I have spent a lot of time evaluating what went wrong with him and why. For a very long time, he's been an amazing partner and loving husband. He's been going through a lot of difficult issues since his father's death 2 years ago. Our problems started after that. The original poster replied, he had a very close relationship with his father, and his sudden death shook him up. I admired my father-in-law. We were close, but I don't like my mother-in-law, for obvious reasons. While they are very different people, father-in-law and mother-in-law loved each other a lot, and father-in-law spoiled and indulged his wife. My husband didn't have a good relationship with his mother, but we both could see that his death devastated her, and my husband tried hard to be her support and strength. He felt that he owed his dad to keep his mom happy after his passing. Father-in-law was financially successful in his life, and his wife, who was a stay-at-home mother, led a rich lifestyle. After his death, in taking care of his affairs, husband realized things weren't as good as they looked, and a lot of his investments had gone negative. Not that father-in-law did anything bad, but it is the nature of things. Now my husband has to downgrade his mother's lifestyle, and she hates it. My mother-in-law is pretty immature and refuses to understand change and drowned my husband in guilt. That was the major source of the money criticism from her. His days pretty much became long hours at work, coddling his mom, carving out time for kids. Dealing with his father's estate has been a second full-time job for over 2 years. With all this mess, him deciding to move away from his mother and distance himself from his family is a huge effort, and I have to give him credit for that. Being his mother's emotional crutch for the past years, unfortunately meant that her views of me, a person she resents, colored his views too. He has apologized for that, and he is making overt efforts with me to fix that and show me he appreciates me. With as hard as he was working, he prioritized spending time with kids every day. While he didn't like it, mother-in-law took up whatever sliver of free time he could have. It was something or the other with her on a daily basis. This meant that we both let our relationship take a back seat. I encouraged him to go take care of these things while I managed the rest in the background. It had become that the only interaction we were having was frequent coitus. He's always been a very giving lover in bed, and that made me do more for him. And since I knew that our bed life was the only fun time he was having in all the stress, I catered to him. He'd say a bunch of great, sweet things to me, and his one random remark here and there would be what I'd obsess over. As things got kinkier between us, I believe that he didn't notice how it'd negatively affect me. I do think his remorse and apology is sincere in this area, and his actions show that. He is a very successful and good-looking guy with a charming personality. I think it'd be easier for him to quit our relationship and start over with someone new like his mother wants. But he's doing the work to fix the problems between us, and that is what shows me that he loves me. We have had a great relationship before, and I think it warrants seeing what things look like after we come out of the tragedy and difficulty he's faced.